The students have to take on more debt to go to college. They have less money to pay it back. And so when you look at the past, 2 decades, student loan debt has more than tripled. Not the students' fault. We look at our states and the National Education Association, about 32 states spend less on colleges and universities. They spent more in 2008 than they did in 2020. So that's an average decrease of somewhere, about $1,400 per full-time student.
I think, first of all, the cost of tuition has outstripped inflation overwhelmingly. And common sense would just say as tuition goes up, the size of the student loans go up, which is the first big problem. The second big problem we have is we really have too many people going to college. And a lot of people are finding, even if they hang around and get their degree, they're finding that they don't get that good of a job as they were hoping for. They might end up having to go to what in Wisconsin we refer to as technical schools, or they may go to trade schools to make a decent living. Okay. But if your 4-year degree does not lead to a good job, that's another problem that you're going to have. And I think the number of people getting 4 years degrees, it varies, should drop maybe 20%, maybe 40%, something like this, where people shouldn't go until they're sure that that 4-year degree is going to lead to a job.
I think that state and federal governments need to do a better job in terms of investing in higher education, especially for disadvantaged students. Of course, we're seeing now that because we've had programs like Pell Grants, which we've been trying to increase that. In the 70s, we'll say mid-70s, 1975, Pell Grants covered about 79% of the average cost of a 4-year public college. And today it's all the way down to less than 30%, probably about 28%. So that means that students who really come from these low-income backgrounds are really kind of left behind.
Well, I think it's very accessible. The question is it affordable? Like I said, I think we have more people probably go to college than should. The standards to get in college just keep dropping because as we kind of have less people going to college, in part because less people out there, the universities are desperate for money. So they are lowering the standards to get into universities, which is unfortunate, but they're governed by going after the dollar.
So we've also seen some success through the public service loan forgiveness program. They're trying to strip that away too. I think we need to make sure that the other thing is that college is affordable, because if they're not affordable, students are going to get into more and more and more debt. It doesn't make any sense to me to treat student loan debt differently from other debt.
We have situations where payment is based on income level, and in that regard, you're helped along. But there are people who feel that we ought to have loan forgiveness with public service jobs. And a lot of times the Republicans pass that sort of thing. Maybe I'm not a typical Republican. I don't like the idea of the government offering benefits to employees that the private sector does not have. And I know there's, perhaps a little bit more of this is coming down the pike when we get done with the big, beautiful bill. But like I said, I do not like this idea that somehow a government job is more noble or more important than a private sector job, like some Republicans think.
We got corporations, billionaires who file bankruptcy all the time, and they expect the government to pay them out, to bail them out. In many instances, the government does. So I think we owe our students an opportunity to offer them relief from student loan debt, whether it's through bankruptcy or any other methods that we can create laws to support. Student debt, oftentimes it hangs on for years and years. As a matter of fact, people die with that debt. People retire with that debt. I mean, can you imagine? But that happens.
I think when they got rid of bankruptcy for college loans is when the student debt crisis really took off, right? If it was like 80 years ago, or whenever it was that student loans were dischargeable in bankruptcy, people wouldn't take out that many loans in the first place. They wouldn't be eligible for the loans because someone wouldn't want to be stuck there hanging for them. You can't give out so many loans in the first place. And in our big reconciliation package, we're mildly reducing the amount of loans that an undergraduate can take out from the government, and we're putting a cap on the amount of graduate school loans. And when I hear real scare stories, frequently it's some poor student who got suckered by a university into getting a master's degree in something that didn't make them any more employable, but all of a sudden they're 140,000 in debt, and that's a tragedy. Although it does pay the bills for the university.
Reducing it or eliminating these interest rates would help relieve the student debt burden overall. And of course, we're seeing actions here in Congress right now where my Republican colleagues are actually doing the opposite. But, for example, the reconciliation bill would raise interest rates, not lessen them. I mean, we're trying to reconcile. Well, let's reconcile some things to help these students who want to be educated get that opportunity.
They should be lowered. I've been a sponsor of bills in the past to try to lower those interest rates. And believe it or not, Republicans sometimes are not in favor of that. The government was making money on these student loans, which they shouldn't. So frequently, first of all, you're making money on the tuition if you're a state school or a government school, and then you turn around and the federal government is making money on excessive interest rates. No, I think the interest rate should be tied to some metric, and they should not be the type of thing the government is making money on, that's for sure.
The SAVE plan, and I think that was a great opportunity to look at income-driven repayment, because when your repayment exceeds your income, it creates difficulty for people in the first place to pay it back. So I think we've got to better invest in public service forgiveness, letting the borrowers pay off their debt past as I said, the monetary contributions, and maybe give back in the way of working in certain communities and so forth.
I think we have to monitor the universities and make sure that people are not taking out a lot of student loan debt unless you can be expected to pay it off for that degree in that university. Because otherwise it's just a way for the universities to make more money, but put the students in a permanent problem. And I also think universities should be able to say that the student shouldn't take out that loan. I've heard from some responsible universities in which they try to discourage the students from taking out loans, and they can't, because under current law, you're not supposed to tell the student not to take out that loan. It should be the opposite. Caring universities should not only be able to say you shouldn't take out that loan, they should prevent you from taking out that loan.